and your team. Thank you for taking the time out and being here today. CCS Learning Academy is a professional training division of CCS Global Tech, a 26-year-old full-service IT consulting firm. We help business to build their teams with skilled tech professionals depending upon their project needs. We also help them by upskilling and reskilling their workforce on latest technology trends and professional development and leadership training. We offer a wide range of innovative technology solutions, training, career placement for business and individuals. My name is Shivani Kala. At CCS Learning Academy, I have been in technology and professional training sector for over a decade. I work with students, organizations, and leaders for their professional development. We'll be running a live QA at the end of the webinar. We have enabled our Ask a Question feature. It is on the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, just put them in there. Today, we have well-respected subject matter expert, trainer, and speaker, having more than a decade experience. Please welcome Mr. Nishant Mishra. Nishant, you can take it from here. Hi, Nishant, you're mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was speaking on mute. Hello, everyone. I'm hope I'm audible now.
Hi, Nishant.
Yep. Can you hear me now? Am I audible? Hello. Can you hear me, Shivani?
Nishant, can you hear me? Because your voice is not audible.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me now? I think. Okay. So let me get started. I guess Shivani has some problem from her side. Let me get started. Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry for this hiccup. I'm so sorry about it. So let's get it started. In today's session, we'll talk about the need of data integration to facilitate the data analytics. We'll learn about a tool called Azure Data Factory, which is a cloud-based managed ETL tool that will help us integrate a different set of data systems that we will be learning about. We'll learn what are the different components of it. And towards the end, we'll learn how can we see this tool in action. And then we'll try to use Power BI to consume that data and do some high-level charts. At the end of the session, I'll go over a brief about the what this data engineering bootcamp is, what all modules you will be learning in this data analytics and engineering bootcamp, and post-graduation, what will you achieve, out of this session. So that being said, let's quickly jump on to the first topic of the today's session. what is the need of the integration, right? So in my previous classes, I have already explained that whether any industry you take, whether it is insurance or banking or healthcare, e-commerce, right? There are a tremendous amount of data generated on a daily basis, right? If I can just give you supermarkets in US on an average, every minute 65,000 transaction happens, right? So if we have this massive amount of data generated day in, day out, analyzing that data is very difficult, right? If we present data in tabular format and Excel or whatnot, deriving insights is very difficult until unless you do some aggregations or you are handy with Excel doing some pivoting and pivot charts and whatnot. And for C-suite, the higher ups in the organization, they take the business decisions based on the trends that we have in the past business years, right? Now the question is like, okay, we have this transactional system which records these high volume of data. How can we pass it to the analytics platform? How can we use it for the analysis purpose? So there is a huge gap. There is a huge bridge to, which we have to fill in, right? So there are different, tools in the market that can be used for integrating these data systems, your transactional system, and your reporting analytics systems or reporting platforms, right? And one of the tools that we have in the market is called as Azure Data Factory. So in today's session, we'll talk a bit more about the Azure Data Factory. What are the different components about Data Factory that we have? And how can we configure Data Factory to complete this data integration and provide data to the analytics platform so that on-demand ad hoc analytics can be generated. Now, there could be a question like, is Data Factory really important? Are there other tools or is there any other way we can do it? Answer is yes, you can do it. There are n number of tools in the market, uh, for, whether it be SSIS, whether it be Oracle Data Integrator, whether it be Informatica, whether it be Databricks. You can use any sort of tool, right? And whether it is possible without using any ETL tool, answer is again yes, it is possible, but you need to write a large line of code, maybe thousands to 10,000s, to integrate and transform this data set, right? And that is going to be very tedious job and requires heavy maintenance. Okay, so that's why industry is moving towards the this sort of tool, and organization prefers to have it cloud hosted so that they need not to manage it or maintain it within their on-prem data centers. So that being said, let's quickly talk a bit about what is Data Factory. Okay, so Data Factory is an ETL or ELT tool provided by Azure, that is Microsoft, which can be used to design simple to mid-complex to high complex hybrid ETL or ELT applications or data integration projects. ETL stands for extract, transform, load, meaning you extract the data from different sources, transform it along the way, and then finally load it into the destination. Whereas ELT meaning extract everything, dump it into your destination, and only transform those records, those data sets which you need for the cleansing analytics purpose, right? So pretty much you save some time in cleansing activities, right? And in today's world, pretty much organization wants to have ELT process in place where they want to have all the data in their systems, in their data lakes, and they just do the analytics on need basis by using different type of tools like SQL, Databricks, Python, or ADF, or whatnot, right? Now, ADF can help you orchestrate end-to-end data movement operation or transformation operation, right? So imagine you have a couple of data sources, right? Which is recording daily business transactions. And then you need to extract data from all those sources, combine them as a single data stream, and then you want to apply hundreds of business rules on the top of it, right? To answer the business questions, and then you want to load them into your analytics platform. That platform could be Snowflake, could be a data lake, could be Amazon Redshift, could be Google BigQuery, Azure Synapse, and whatnot, right? So you can use this entire operation, the entire cycle of data operation with the help of Data Factory. ADF offers you code-free UI so that you can just simply drag and drop and define what all activities you want to perform on the data that you are moving in, right? It's not like you cannot code it. You can also do some scripting, some coding of your choice if you want to plug in some Python script in the middle, if you want to plug in some SQL script, PL/SQL script, NoSQL script. Then there are facilities available in Data Factory which you can use to plug in your code and pretty much run them as part of your ETL workflow, right? ADF also provides you a good visual way to see the data lineage or the dependencies, meaning if you have a data set, you want to see what all activities or task is consuming that data set. That can be easily displayed in Data Factory, and you can see them. You can also see the lineage, how the data is moving throughout. What is the data flow, right? That is called as the lineage. So these features are pre-built within Data Factory, making the life of a developer easier so that they can understand the dependency and the data flow. Whatever pipelines, the data pipelines that we create for data operations in Data Factory, they can be executed based on different schedules. You want to run it every minute, every week, you can do so. Or if you want to execute them based on certain events, based on certain activities, you can also do that kind of scheduling with the help of Data Factory. Data Factory also supports the integration of CI/CD pipelines, meaning that in any project, right, we always create different environments. We create a dev environment, and then we create higher environments like UAT or QA, or finally we have the production environment, right? So you do all the work, all the development in the dev environment, and then once you are done with your development, you pretty much push your code into the QA environment for testing purposes, for UAT purposes, right? And once testing is through, then you pretty much publish your code into the higher environment, that is production, where the system runs and every day and moves the data, apply the data transformation. So ADF is quite handy with this kind of support, CI/CD pipelines. It supports GitHub, it supports Git repositories, as well as the Visual Studio Team Foundation Services online as well, so that you can configure the CI/CD pipelines easily. Lastly, you can also do the lift and shift if you have any existing ETL packages, primarily designed in SQL Server Integration Services. You can pretty much lift and shift and deploy it to Azure Data Factory and run it within the Data Factory itself without any need of or without any requirement of creation of any sort of environments, or hosting an environment to host those packages. It is simply plug and play, lift and shift, and Data Factory has the predefined infra available, which you can leverage to execute your packages. So that's pretty much the high level overview of Data Factory. Let's see how Data Factory works, right? So as I said, it is a code-free ETL, ETL as a service, or ETL as a tool from Azure, right? So it's a managed services, right? So it pretty much works in three different steps. First is connect and collect. Second step is transform and enrich. And third is publish, right? So Data Factory has more than 100 connectors, pre-built connectors, right? Where you can go and plug in and get the data into Data Factory environment or Azure environment, right? There are around, as I said, 100 plus sources, which includes any sort of SQL or relational databases, whether it be Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, PL/SQL, DB2, Teradata, and whatnot, right? Whether it be file systems, Parquet, ORC, JSON, CSV, Excel, flat files, right? They have a lot of support for streaming data sets, right? You have support for any sort of unstructured data, blobs, data lakes, right? So you can connect them, and then you can ingest the data into ADF environment, and then start applying the business transformations, or start applying the business rules to your data, right? And once your data is polished, enriched, you can pretty much publish it to the analytics platform where it is available for different business users to consume it directly, either by pulling them into some sort of reporting tools like Power BI, Tableau, MicroStrategy, etc. Or you can directly push them into tools like or platforms like Snowflake or Data Lake or Azure data warehouses, right? Where users can log in and if they are a bit technical, then they can write their own queries to basically query the processed result. So that's how ADF works within Azure. Now, there are different components of ADF. We have pipelines, triggers, activities, data sets, linked services, data flows, and integration runtimes. And these activities or these components are very much important for your pipeline to execute, right? So I will be covering these one by one in the upcoming slide. So first is pipeline and pipeline and trigger, right? So pipeline is basically a logical grouping of activities that we want to perform on our data set, right? So for example, if I want to move data from point A to point B, that is an activity, right? If you want to call a SQL statement to update certain records within a data set or within a database, that is also an activity, right? If you want to pull data from a certain table and then based on the data set that you have received, you want to execute certain operations, that is an activity, right? So for likewise, like we have a number of activities available within Data Factory pre-built activities, which we can simply drag and drop and configure it to define that data operation that we want to perform. ADF has more than you can have multiple pipelines, and every pipeline can have multiple activities, right? And every pipeline at maximum, if I'm not wrong, you can have 40 activities per pipeline at max. Now, these activities that we defined within the pipeline, if you want to execute them parallelly, then we can just simply drag and drop and place them in the canvas. But if you want to execute them in an order, in a sequential fashion, right, then there are precedence constraints available within the data factory, which you can use to connect these activities so that you can define the integration flow, like which activity will execute first, which will execute second, and which will execute third, and so on, right? So there are different types available like success, failure, completion, and escape that can be used to define this integration flow. These pipelines can be executed manually or it can be triggered with the help of a feature called trigger within Data Factory itself, right? So trigger, you can call it as a scheduler, which I was telling in the previous slide, where you can schedule it based on a given schedule, predefined frequency, or you can trigger it based on any sort of events, right? And if you want to manually debug it, you can pretty much always do a manual execution that is called as a manual debugging. Now, there are three different types of triggers that we have in Data Factory. One is the schedule trigger, which is going to invoke your pipeline based on a given time frame. Second is the tumbling window trigger. Tumbling window trigger pretty much executes your pipeline on a periodic interval, and it also retains the state of the previous execution. And then from there, it pretty much resume the execution, right? So it doesn't start from scratch. It pretty much executes multiple times, retaining the previous execution state. Okay. And last is the event-based triggers, where it can be executing based on certain triggers, trigger events, such as, for example, if we want to process certain files, and we want to execute only when the file is arrived in the SFTP or in the blob storage, then we want to trigger the pipeline. If there is no file, no need to execute or skip the execution. So in that case, event-based trigger can be used. Okay. So that's about the pipelines and the triggers. That's the high-level diagram explaining that. Okay. Then we have the activities. So activities, as I said, it's processing a step and individual activity within the pipeline. There are different types of activities available in Data Factory. So first is a data movement activity where you pretty much do the copy operations like moving data from point A to point B. Second category is data transformation activities, which includes data flows, procedures, data breaks, HD insights, and there are additional activities which is not listed down here, but you can see in Data Factory UI that there are more activities for transformation operations. Then we have the control activities. For example, if you want to perform any sort of administrative operations like calling another pipeline within a pipeline, you want to execute certain activity n number of times, you want to perform any sort of web operations, you want to do any sort of lookups, then we can go for using the control activities, right? And if I talk about the categories of the activities, if you see here, we have Move and Transform, Synapse, Data Explorer, Azure Function, Batch Services, and whatnot, right? And since every week ADF does a release of new features, right? So you may be looking at different components added to the UI of the ADF. So don't be surprised with that. So that's pretty much about the activities in Data Factory. Next, we have the data sets. So data set is nothing but a data structure, right? It represents a data structure that you are going to read from a given data source or data store. And it also points to the outcome of an activity which goes back to your data store. So that is what we call as a data set. So for example, suppose if I am moving data from Azure Blob Storage, my file is sitting in the Azure Blob Storage inside a container, right? And we want to read that file and move them into a data lake storage, or maybe we want to move that into a database, right? So the container, meaning the folder and the file itself, it's my data structure. The columns that we are bringing in from that file is my data structure, right? And then when we move this into the Azure or another data lake storage, right? The container in which or the folder in which we want to write that file is going to be called as our data set. In case of SQL, so for example, if we are connecting to a SQL database, right? The table or a view which you are pulling data from or reading data from is your data set, and the destination table or a view in which you are writing the data, that is called as your data set. So when you configure the data set in the Azure UI, that's how it looks like. You will see a linked service, you will see integration runtime, and then the data set, right? You can hard code your table names or the schema names, or you can use parameters, to store that information so that they are not hard coded, and you can change them on the fly, right? Next is link service. Link service is one of the very critical and important component of Data Factory. And if it is not configured, then neither your data set will work nor your activities will work, right? So link service is pretty much defined as the compute service, which will provide you the infrastructure or required compute to connect to the underlying data systems. It also includes the name of the service or the servers along with the database name, which we are going to read data from or write data to, right? So for example, if I'm connecting to a SQL Server database, which is sitting inside the corporate data center, then that server name, XYZ server name or their IP address, and the database name which we want to connect is will be stored within the linked service, okay? And likewise, if let's suppose if we want to write the data into a database which is hosted either on cloud or maybe on-prem, right? For example, let's suppose Azure SQL database, right? So that SQL instance URL and the database in which you want to write the data, that will be stored within the linked service, okay? And then this linked service will be used by the data set to connect to that data store, right? And then pull in the information and provide that information to the activity for the execution purpose. So linked services are used for two purposes. One is represent the data store, as I said, which we want to use in our activity. And second is to represent the compute resource so that the execution of the activity can happen. So in Data Factory UI, when you go under manage option, I'll be showing it in a while. When you go in the manage option, you will see that link service option where you have an option to go and create different types of link services, okay? And these link services would be using some sort of integration runtime. That is the compute actually to define, what kind of data store you are going to connect to. Next is the data flow component of Data Factory. This component is optional. This can be used only in a situation when you want to apply data transformation logic. If you are doing a simple pipelines, just extract and dump piece, then data flow can be excluded, right? So data flow pretty much, it's a code-based or UI-based drag and drop feature in Data Factory that can help you apply different set of business transformations, such as merging of the data, dividing the data into different output streams, calculating certain derived columns, sorting, aggregation, filtration. These kind of operations can be done with the help of data flow. Data flow does support different drag and drop features, but if you want to use some sort of code to apply your business transformations, in that case, we have activity called a script within Data Factory, which you can use and write your own script in any SQL flavor or any SQL dataset, and then you can pretty much call it within the Data Factory. If you want to use Python, then you can write your code in Python, either in Notebook or whatnot, and then host them into Databricks, Azure Databricks, and then call them into Data Factory, and then that can be part of your ETL workflow. Now, data flows uses Apache Spark clusters in the background because that is, the compute which is where it is coming from, right? So Apache Spark clusters is one of the primary resource used by Microsoft Azure for facilitating Azure Data Factory, data flow activities, as well as within Power BI. If you are performing any data wrangling operations, then Apache Spark clusters would be used. There are different data types available, or data flow supports different data types, such as arrays, date, float, integers, long map, string, floats, and whatnot. You can find the detailed list of the supported data types on Microsoft official documentation. Now, coming to the set of the transformations. So primarily they have four different categories of transformations. So first one is the row modifiers, meaning the row-based operations, such as filtering the data, sorting, altering rows, and whatnot. Second is the schema modifier, meaning that you get n number of rows or n number of columns from your incoming data stream, and you aggregate them and change the overall skeleton of your data. You want to add a new column, you want to calculate ranking, you want to do pivot on pivots, right? Those can be done with the help of a schema modifier set of transformations. Then multiple inputs and outputs, meaning you want to divide the incoming data set into multiple output streams, or you want to join multiple input to a single output data stream, or you want to perform a lookup to a third party data set and then perform certain operations, then in that case, this category would be used. And last but not the least is formatters, where if you want to flatten the data set, you want to parse a data set, maybe you were getting JSON files from a REST API call, right? And you want to parse that JSON file, then flatten or parse transformations can be used. So that's pretty much about the data flow component of Data Factory. Next is the integration runtime. This is also one of the important component, primarily provides the compute to compute resources to the Data Factory in order to execute the link services, data sets, and pipelines and activities, right? There are different usage of integration runtime. The first use is to facilitate the data flow execution and support all the compute requirements. Second is the data movement activity. If you want to move data from point A to point B, you need a compute service. That is where we are using integration runtime. Activity dispatch. Maybe you want to call certain jobs or certain procedures, certain codes which is sitting on XYZ or third-party servers. Then again, integration runtime will help you dispatch those operations and then get them executed at the third-party servers. And last but not least is the SSIS package execution. If you want to execute any sort of ETL packages built in SSIS, and you want to execute them into Data Factory, then SSIS package execution in IR would be used to facilitate that infrastructure. IR also bridges the gap or bridges the gap between the activities and the linked services by providing that compute environment. I shown in the dataset activity, like you have seen that there was a linked service and IR. So without IR, you cannot use your linked service, right? So that's how it is laid out here. There are three types of data integration runtimes. One is Azure. So whenever we create a data factory, it creates a auto-resolve runtime that we call as an Azure runtime. This can be used to connect to any data store, internal or external, which is not protected by any firewall. Then Azure IR can be used. Second, we have self-hosted. If you want to communicate to any sort of data store, which is protected by firewall, then in that case, a self-hosted runtime should be installed behind the firewall to facilitate the communication. And third one is the Azure SSIS runtime, which is used to facilitate the execution of the SSIS packages primarily. And these are the three IRs that we have in place. Excuse me. And when you go into the manage option under Data Factory UI, you will go into the integration runtime, and we can go and create the a different set of integration runtimes. Okay, you can have more than one IRs, within a Data Factory instance. Now let's see how this Data Factory works. Okay, and so I have a pre-recorded demonstration for you guys. So let's go and watch that video real quick. All right, let's head to Azure portal and see Azure Data Factory in action. So here I'm currently into the Azure subscription, and I have created a resource group called CCLA demo for our demonstration. So in this demonstration, I have two services. One is the Azure Data Factory service, and I have two instances of the Azure storage, which is nothing but a data lake storage. Now, in this demonstration, the objective is to use Data Factory to create a pipeline and move data from STCCLA source storage to STCCLA data lake storage. Now, let's go and have a look inside the source storage. We have a container called as the landing zone. And in this landing zone, we have a file called financial sample.xlx. So imagine a scenario where you have a process which outputs a lot of raw files in terms of Excel, CSV, ORC, Parquet, JSON, into the landing zone on a daily basis. And you have to write a ETL pipeline which reads these file, processes it, combines it, and it stores into a centralized location. Like in our case, we have this CCLA data lake storage. Inside this data lake storage, it comes inside this processed data folder, and this is going to be exposed to your reporting platform for the reporting purposes, right? So with that being said, let's head on to Data Factory and launch the ADF Studio. This is called as the ADF Studio, which offers you different options to do the end-to-end orchestration. So in the left-hand side, you see we have the author option, monitor, manage, and learning center. So if you are starting for the first time, you can always go and use the learning center to see some sort of demonstrations available as part of the tutorials. So in our case, let's go on to the author first and look at what we get in the author option, right? So we get to see the pipelines, we get to see data sets, data flows, power queries, as we discussed in the slide deck. Now, in order to create a pipeline, what I need is I need to have certain services, right? We need to have the pipeline, we need to have an activity, we need to have the link service, and we need to have a data set, right? So I'm going to go ahead to the manage option, and I'm going to create a linked service, okay? One linked service for my source and one linked service for my destination, right? So in the link service, I'm going to hit new, and I'm going to say, what is my source as blob, right? So I'll choose it, and I'll call it as maybe source data, okay? And I'm going to use the self-hosted runtime. I'm going to use my subscription to get me a storage. So I'm going to use this CCLS storage, and I'm going to test the connection. So this looks good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create one more blob storage for the destination. All right, so I'm going to call it as the processed data, or maybe I'll say destination data, okay? And then I'll say coming from this subscription, and my storage name is data lake, and test the connectivity, all good here. All right, coming back to the author option. Now I need to create two data sets, one for the source and one for the destination. All right, so I'll say new data set. I'll say blob. I'll choose it. And what is my file type? It's Excel file, right? I'll choose Excel and hit continue. And I'll say source Excel data. And which link service are you going to use to connect to this data store? Source data, right? I'll choose it. And then you have to specify the container, which container you are looking at and what file you are looking at. I'll choose it, okay? And which sheet you're gonna choose, right? So you can choose either from here, or you can also go ahead and choose at the later stage as well, so that up to us. So I'll choose it here. So it is taking a few seconds. Now it is available here. So we have this data set one created for the source. Likewise, we have to go and create one more data set for the destination. So I will again choose blob storage, hit continue, and I want to create, a different file format. This one to use for destination. So we have a broad range of file formats supported by ADF. So I'm going to choose here a delimited file format. I'll choose this one, and then I'll say destination, or I'll say processed data set. Okay, which link service? Destination data, right? What is the path where you want to save this file? I'll say this processed data. Okay, I'll choose this, and then I'll say hit OK. All right, now I have these two data sets created, and you have to be very mindful about publishing the contents, right? So whenever you make any changes, you make sure that you keep on publishing it so that it can save. Otherwise, if you don't publish it and if you just close your studio, then everything will go away, right? Now it's time to create a pipeline. Okay, so hit new. Now which activity I'm going to use? I'm going to say copy activity, right? So I'll choose this copy activity, and then on the general you can specify pretty much the name, description, timeout, and these various properties, right? But two properties which is a must to be configured is a source and a sink, right? So now what is your source? So my source is the source Excel data, right? And then what is your sink? So my sink is the processed data, right? So you pretty much go with the default settings for now, but yes, these properties can be configured on need basis depending on your requirement. You can specify the file path type, if you have any prefix, any wildcards in the file path, or you have list of files in a directory, right? You want to specify any timestamp based on which you want to process the files, right? So there are different properties which can be configured on need basis. And likewise for the destination or the sink, you can specify the copy behavior. You can define how many concurrent connections you want to open to your destination, how much size of data you want to write in one block, right? So these properties can be defined here. And in our case, I'm going to go ahead with this default settings, right? And then mappings you can do if you have different set of column name in the source and destination, especially when it comes to the relational data, right? You have to have a mapping done, right? And then settings can be defined for defining the parallelism, defining the fault tolerance, defining the staging areas, right? So these properties can be configured on need basis. Now, once you are all done, then you can hit publish all, and then publish the changes here. And once publish is done, then you pretty much go and debug your pipeline, right? All right, so this is all good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and say debug. So now it is going to execute this pipeline. All right, so this pipeline is completed successfully. Now let's go ahead and see in the Azure Blob Storage and see if we have this file created or not. So I will go inside it, go inside the container, inside the process data, and you see we have this file called financialsample.xls.txt because we have chosen the text file format. So this is how you can use the data factory pipeline to move the data from one point to the other point, and you can pretty much do various set of transformations. Here in this demonstration, it's a very basic, just a movement operation, but there are set of activities specified here in the data factory, which you can use to perform any sort of data related operations. Now, let's go and see how can we read this data into a reporting platform, right? So I'm going to go ahead into my Power BI desktop application, and then I'll get this file into Power BI desktop and do some measures on the top of it, right? So first, I will go onto the blob storage, that is this data lake, and I'll get the URL. So I'll copy the blob service URL from here and go back to my Power BI desktop and hit on get data and click on more. And from more, I'll get an option, what are the connectors we have here? So I'll simply say blob. I'll choose blob and then put the URL name here and hit OK. And now here it gives me that container name, and here if you see we have this file, right? I'll just simply hit on transform data because it's a binary format. So I need to make certain changes. So here I'll click on this binary, and then if you see we have this data populated, right? And I'll quickly just rename this. I'll say fin data, right? And him simply click on close and apply. All right, so the data is loaded, and if you see here we have this fin data table which has got various columns and various measures, which is by default created by Power BI. So for example, if I want to see, okay, what is my product profit? Okay, so I'll simply choose it, and then you can change the UI. Probably I want to see maybe kind of a pie chart, right? What is my profitability based on different products? Okay, now I want to see what is my segment wise total sales, right? So you can convert them into a donut chart, right? If you want to see, let's suppose, maybe any other dimension wise, let's suppose country wise total sales, right? So you can pretty much have these visuals, and if you want, you can have product based, slices, right? So pretty much you have product slices. So I'll say, okay, I want to see what is the total sales for Montana product. You see all these visuals gets highlighted or filtered. If I say Velo, what is my sales? So this is how you can create the UI or the report or the dashboard using this processed data. And then you can pretty much go ahead and publish this to the reporting platforms, share it with the end users, and then they can do the business analysis and take the strategic decisions. So that's pretty much I wanted to highlight in today's session. And let's go back to the slide deck, and I'll hand over to Kajal, and she will go ahead with the next steps. All right, so that was a small demonstration how to see the data factory in action. Next, we will talk about the different use cases or the use case scenarios of data factory.
Thank you, Nishant, for an informative session. And again, participant, if you have any questions, you can just please put it across so that the trainer can answer your questions. Any queries, if you have, you can just feel free to please put on those queries. And Nishant, if you can just just for a general thing, if you can just share the duration of certification and uh, exam, what is the how much time does it take for preparing for the exam, and how it can help us in your career placement, if you can just throw some light on this.
Yeah, so it depends on what all courses are they gonna sign up for the full course or a specific module, right? So in general, like this is if they go for the full boot camp, it is around 10 to 12 weeks of program, which includes various modules, which I'm gonna just showcase in the next slide. So in this boot camp, pretty much it is going to be instructor-led, which is going to fill the gaps between your academics knowledge and what is required in the industry. All our team here is technology certified, whether you go for Microsoft courses or Snowflakes or Power BI and whatnot. All of the instructors are certified in the given area. Each of the students gets a dedicated mentor to track the overall progress and do one-on-one sessions in case of any queries or questions or concerns. All the training materials, softwares, licenses, will be provided as part of the boot camp. We also conduct various mock interviews. Some of them are on a weekly basis, and some of them are for interview preparations. We also provide you sample projects and other assignments, so that you can practice them as you go along in the boot camp. We have a support team where you can get help from them in order to complete your application, as well as we also help you in transitioning to the market for job interviews. And any sort of, we have checks and balances in place. We call it a SWOT analysis to ensure the quality of the training, quality of the services that you receive, as well as the quality. We ensure that whatever contents are being delivered, they are of the best in quality, right? The modules that we cover here is pretty much different modules. For database side, we teach you how to design a database application from scratch, how to do the relational modeling, and how to do the analytical modeling, which includes the dimensional data model as well as the multidimensional and tabular model primarily used for the analytics purpose. We also help you learn the SQL programming, because for data analytics or data sciences, SQL is one of the important scripting that one should know. For data integration, we teach SSIS, Azure, and Snowflake. And for data reporting and visualizations, we teach SSRS, Power BI, Tableau, and Python. Because Power BI, Tableau, if you see, they are in the Magic Quadrant from Gartner's analytics report. So we do put emphasis on teaching Power BI and Tableau a lot, because they are the top-notch tools in the market at this point. Now, what you achieve out of this? So you will become, of course, confident and knowledgeable with the tools of the trade, right? You know how to design the different type of data analytical applications or data integration applications, using the cutting edge technologies that are being used in the industry at the moment. You will have hands-on experience with the tools of the trade by practicing a number of projects and assignments given by our instructors. You will get to see the real-time use case scenarios of these technologies, how they are going to be used in the real-time project scenarios, whether it be insurance, banking, healthcare, e-commerce, and whatnot. We also help you put up these experience, whatever you have learned in this boot camp, to your resume. All these data engineering skills, data analytical skills, data science skills, they will be part of your resume, and our team can help you write that professional resume. You will get into transformed market-ready data engineers. You can apply for data integration expert roles, data warehouse developer roles, ETL engineers, data scientists, etc. Apart from this, we also help you with the some sort of uh, certification exam vouchers. So once you are done with the training, and if you want to uh, go and prepare for Microsoft certification exam, or let's suppose you want to go for Snowflakes or other certification exams, CSIS Learning Academy will also give you some free exam vouchers as well, so that you can try your luck and get certified on that technology. So that's pretty much it from my side, Shivani. If you have any questions on the chat box, please let me know. I can help answer those questions.
Thank you, Nishant, for this informative session. And again, participant, if you have any questions or queries, you can just drop email to us, or and I've shared the website details. You can go through the course details, and if any information you want, you can get it on the website. Uh, when it comes to upskilling and reskilling, CCS Learning Academy is designed to be your organization's secret weapon. CCS Learning Academy is one-stop solution for all your business needs. Our advanced talent solution gives an across to the pool of skilled tech professionals ready to deploy anytime, aligning your business needs with no recruitment fees. Our network of talented and passionate instructors is ready and waiting to work directly with you or your team or your entire company. If you are new to IT, you're a seasoned professional. We are offering a wide range of courses that can really help you. Uh, on behalf of CCS Learning Academy and Dishant, we thank you for your attention to this important training session and hope you enjoyed this intro session. Looking forward to you all joining our future webinar. Stay safe out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.